We might like to think of wrestlers as superhumans with no weaknesses, but they are just as vulnerable to being poorly as the rest of us. You can't put microbes in a headlock, although if science could one day make that happen, then I would be truly grateful. Sometimes a wrestler's immune system can get put down for the 3 count, and a star is forced to work a match whilst under the weather. We've rounded up 10 examples of some of the sickest wrestlers we could find, and we don't mean that in a cool young people speech kind of way. I'm the perfectly healthy Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 times wrestlers worked through an illness. Join us. Number 10, Bronson Reed on Raw. In a tale as old as David and Goliath themselves, some tiny germs very nearly felled a mountain of a man on this April 2023 episode of Raw. Bronson Reed was inexplicably cut from WWE in 2021 before Big Daddy Triple H put things right and brought him back around a year later. After languishing in limbo for a while, aka a storyline with The Miz, Reed got everyone's attention when he was booked in a match with Bobby Lashley on this show. Did somebody say big meaty men slapping meat? No, just me? Alright then. Both men had a great showing, but some fans noticed that the Australian obelisk looked a little out of sorts. Reed later took to Twitter to confirm that he had been sick with the flu all week in the lead up to the match. Get used to hearing the word flu, by the way, wrestlers can't seem to stop catching it. Even though he was under the weather, Reed still put on a great match. Good lad. Number 9, Britt Baker at Full Gear 2019. Full Gear 2019 was AEW's first pay-per-view after the launch of Dynamite and was home to many memorable moments for the company. Chris Jericho defeated Cody Rhodes to ensure that the American Nightmare could never challenge for the world title again. Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley battered each other in a brutal lights-out match, and Ricky Morton did a goddamn Canadian destroyer at the age of 63. With all this going on, you could be forgiven for missing Dr. Britt Baker DMD taking on Bea Priestley on the kickoff show. The wrestling dentist got the win with the lockjaw, but she was actually fighting a war on 2 fronts in the match. Baker was also suffering with the flu when she fought Priestley, as she revealed on Twitter later on. I won't repeat what she called Bea because I'm very scared of what she will do to me if I do. Baker seemed to make a speedy recovery from the illness, which was great news for her and all of her patients. Number 8, RYBACK on the $1 million Tough Enough. Before he was the big guy, before he was Skip Sheffield, and before he was routinely embarrassing himself on social media, RYBACK made his first WWE-related appearance in 2004 as part of the $1 million Tough Enough. Under his birth name of Ryan Reeves, his actual legal first name is RYBACK now, by the way, how mad is that? He was one of the 8 contestants to make it through to the SmackDown portion of the reality contest. Despite having an impressive look and an appetite equivalent to that of a small hippo's, he was ultimately unsuccessful and the competition was eventually won by Daniel Puder. Although, considering what happened to him, maybe RYBACK got lucky. One thing that certainly wasn't lucky was what happened to the Goldberg lookalike during the first week of training for the show. Reeves not only suffered a groin injury whilst preparing for his big moments, but he also developed a case of bronchitis. Goodness me, that is a big one. Luckily, the future Nexus member was able to take the disease down with a shell-shocked and carry on in the competition. Clearly, Feed Me More in this instance applied to antibiotics and lemon tea. Number 7, Drew McIntyre at Crown Jewel 2022. Crown Jewel 2022 will go down in history as the show where, in kayfabe, Logan Paul almost ended Roman Reigns' World Championship reign. Imagine pitching that to a wrestling fan 5 or 6 years ago. Other matches on this Saudi Arabia showcase included Braun Strowman vs Omos, Bianca Belair vs Bayley, and a steel cage encounter between Karrion Kross and Drew McIntyre. The 2 former NXT champions had been beefing ever since Kross returned to the promotion as yet another Triple H rehire. This was only Kross's second pay-per-view bout since coming back, so most of the focus was on him. Thankfully, this meant that nobody really noticed that McIntyre was as sick as a dog during the entire thing. According to a report from PW Insider, McIntyre had been extremely sick in the lead up to this match and even had to miss some of the run-throughs of it because he was so unwell. However, because Scottish people are made of gravel and solidified iron brew, McIntyre soldiered on and completed the match. Honestly, we are very grateful that Drew pulled out all the stops to make this happen and get the definitive win, otherwise we might have been subject to this feud for even longer. Number 6, Bray Wyatt in a Raw dark match. There is some ambiguity surrounding this one, but what we can say for certain is that something was up with the Eater of Worlds during this dark match after an episode of Raw. After Raw went off the air on February 16th, 2015, Wyatt took on John Cena in a special match just for the live crowd. The cult leader also had a surprise in store for those in attendance, although it wasn't a particularly pleasant one. As seen in fan footage of the incident, Wyatt hit Cena with a move before pausing to sell. Selling then turned to panic as he quickly rolled out of the ring to vomit down at ringside. Apologies to anyone eating their dinner whilst watching this. Despite blowing chunks just a few seconds prior, again apologies, Wyatt then got back into the ring to finish off the match. Considering that it wasn't even being televised, nobody would have blamed the third generation star for getting the contest called off. I guess it's a testament to the tenacity of wrestlers, or the toxic culture of the business that encourages performers to continue performing even in the face of serious injury or illness. Or maybe he just ate some bad tacos. You decide. Number 5, Bret Hart at SummerSlam 1993. It was often said that at his peak, Bret Hart could have gotten a great match out of anyone. But could he have put on 2 back-to-back matches on a pay-per-view while suffering a serious bout of the lurgy? Well, yeah, that's exactly what he did at SummerSlam 93. Hart, who was suffering with that damn flu at the time, was supposed to take on Jerry the King Lawler at the event after suffering months of tormenting at the hands of the heel. Lawler had other ideas though, coming down to the ring on crutches and making his court jester Doink fight Bret instead. The Hitman put on a pretty decent 9 minutes with the clown before Lawler thwacked him with his walking aid. This led to their scheduled match taking place and Hart wrestling another 6 minutes with his immune system in the sharpshooter. Number 4, Shawn Michaels at the 1997 Royal Rumble. Never one to be outshone by his fiercest rival, Shawn Michaels also wrestled a match at a Big 4 pay-per-view whilst out of sorts. The 1997 Royal Rumble was essentially built around the Heartbreak Kid. Michaels would be getting his World Championship rematch against the villainous Psycho Sid, and it would be going down in none other than his hometown of San Antonio, Texas. So, the perfect time for the showstopper to come down with a bug. Michaels confirmed in a 2022 interview that before this match he was suffering with, you guessed it, the flu. The two-time Hall of Famer said that he was up all night prior to the event and it was the worst he had ever felt before a show. However, he then remembered that he was one of the most naturally gifted wrestlers of all time and put forth a customarily great performance anyway. What's really weird about this is that this match took place just a handful of months before Michael Jordan played his famous flu game in the NBA playoffs. Does this mean that Shawn Michaels and Michael Jordan are actually the same person? No, of course it doesn't. Why would it mean that? Number 3, CM Punk on Raw. Anyone who has played the Showcase mode in WWE 2K15 will know that the section covering John Cena and CM Punk's rivalry ends with a match on Raw in the build-up to WrestleMania 29. Punk had just lost the WWE Championship to The Rock, while Cena had won the Royal Rumble and was heading for a rematch with the Great One. This bout was set up to determine who Rocky's sole challenger for the event would be. The match was simply incredible, one of the best seen on Raw ever. Both men left it all in the ring, and the years of storyline animosity between the pair helped drive this emotional encounter. Punk even hit a rarely seen pile driver, as much to try and win the match as give Vince a heart attack in Gorilla. According to Jim Ross, Punk was really ill going into this match, worn down from extensive travel and yet another case of the flu. However, the straight-edge superstar reached deep into his bag of tricks and pulled out yet another fight for the ages. Number 2, John Cena at WrestleMania 29. Skipping ahead to that Mania match now, and wouldn't you know it, John Cena is now the one combating an illness ahead of a big match. And before you start anything in the comments, no, Punk did not pass his illness on to Cena out of spite. Although that is probably something he would do, to be fair. Instead, the leader of the C Nation ate something funky in the week leading up to the big night, catching food poisoning just days out from his planned main event match. For most normal human beings, this would have been enough to keep you out of action and throw the entire show into a state of disarray. But remember, this is the guy who came back 4 months after tearing his muscle completely off the bone. You think a little case of the chundas was gonna stop him? In true Super Cena fashion, Big Match John fought through the discomfort and defeated The Rock to win the title and avenge his loss from the previous year. Maybe next time stick to the boiled chicken and broccoli and lay off the petrol station hot dogs, John. Number 1, Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 19. A decade before Cena was hunched over a toilet prior to his big Mania match, another generational icon was also in a bad way going into a match with The Rock. Stone Cold Steve Austin was set to face his arch rival for the third and final time at the 19th edition of the Showcase of the Immortals. This excellent match almost never happened though, because the Texas Rattlesnake had spent the previous night in a hospital bed. According to the man himself, Austin's heart had wigged out right before his big match. Wigged out is definitely the correct medical term here, right? Basically, Austin hadn't been looking after himself and his body was fighting back against his hedonistic lifestyle. However, in true Stone Cold spirit, the legendary wrestler discharged himself from hospital and made his way to the stadium. Austin was never cleared to compete against The Rock that night, and this match could have easily gone very, very wrong. Thankfully though, it didn't, and ended up being the perfect swan song for the Bionic Redneck as a full-time performer. However, for the love of God, people, please listen to your doctor. You might be bald and like to flip people off and drink beer, but you are not Stone Cold Steve Austin.